Do you remember the good old days when we had the law and it was enforced? Welcome to the clown world of 2023, where crazed eco-protesters, normally middle-class numpties on a permanent gap year, glue themselves to the motorway, causing disruption and risking lives, simply to be asked by police officers whether they're okay and if they'd like a sandwich. The accommodation of eco-terrorists, whose aims are irrational and deranged, has fed the idea that climate change justifies breaking the law. Enter stage left BBC Nature presenter Chris Packham and his Channel 4 documentary Is It Time to Break the Law?, in which he sympathises with brainwashed zealots like this young woman.
Yeah, because I don't have a future. And you might.
Well, you don't have a future, you don't have a job either, do you? What have we done to our young people? I think there are mental health issues around these climate alarmists. I don't think they're well. Believing the planet is going to burn down by next Tuesday is a pathology, in my view. I think they are narcissistic doomsters. Plus, they're all vegan, which probably explains why they're in such a bad mood. In the documentary, Packham visits a Just Stop Oil activist who's in jail for scaling a bridge on the Dartford crossing last year. Packham said society should feel shame at putting principled people behind high walls and razor wire. Should we? He meets up with a Swedish ecology professor called Andreas Malm, who's written a book called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Now, whilst Packham doesn't seek for anyone to be hurt by activism, he is sympathetic to the idea of sabotaging pipelines or other fossil fuel infrastructure. The whole basis of this documentary is that breaking the law is now a dilemma. That's right, a dilemma for this influential broadcaster who is, of course, one of the faces of the BBC's nature coverage. So much for impartiality. Do you see how arrogant, how entitled these people are, that they consider themselves so much on the right side of history that they are literally above the law, when you and I, of course, are not? Hilariously, in a previous interview with The Guardian, Packham said a jail term might not be such a bad idea, comparing himself to Nelson Mandela. I'm sorry, he's more Winnie than Nelson in my book. Now, I'm a fan and an admirer of Packham. He's done so much to raise issues around the environment and the animal kingdom. But the law is not a dilemma. Democracy is not a dilemma. And for a country like the UK, responsible for 1% of global carbon emissions, to bankrupt itself in the pursuit of flaky renewables and cause profound damage to our economy, our way of life, and ultimately our energy security is not a dilemma. I'm no climate change denier, and I think it's time that we cleaned up the planet and got those carbon emissions down. But we need to do so sensibly, working with the economy, evidence-based science and the will of the people at the forefront. Why didn't Chris Packham present this documentary in Beijing in China? I'd have cheered him on as he marched through Tiananmen Square. After the madness of COVID, forgive me if I'm not in the mood for another wild, authoritarian intervention by the state at the hands of the so-called experts when they push for windmills that don't turn, solar panels that don't pick up any sunshine, or electric cars which come with their own massive carbon and pollution footprint when you actually crunch the numbers. In the documentary, Packham meets up with Roger Hallam, the cult-like leader of Just Stop Oil, lending further credibility to what is their ultimate goal. And it's what I would call climate communism. What does that mean? Well, in the end, no flights, no trips abroad, no red meat, no fish or dairy, no pets, no central heating, no new clothes. The authorities might as well just equip us with an eco-friendly uniform and be done with it. No wood-burning stoves, no Argas, no air conditioning, no farmers, and of course, absolutely no cars. Who knows whether private property, freedom of movement and state-controlled media could be in their sights as well. After all, we've got to tackle that dangerous misinformation, haven't we? Let me just give you one stat that I think will shock you. The National Grid estimates that decarbonising the grid itself will cost £2 trillion. Who in the name of God is going to pay for that? And what if these measures don't work and the temperature of the earth does not stabilise? What do we do then? And how the hell do we make a difference with our already modest emissions? A view even shared by Tony Blair. These people are living on another planet. At one point in the show, Chris Packham is featured with oil trickling down his face. Well, I think he's got egg on his face. He's a great presenter of nature programmes, but when it comes to climate hysteria and these mad, ruinous ideas, Packham should pack it in.